Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Peace Talks. This is a series where we catch up with the artists and bands that are coming to play for us at the Mars Bar in Worcester. And today I'm joined by Bryan Corbett. Hi Bryan, thanks for joining us today.
Hey. Very nice to be here.
Yeah, grand. And this is going to be I didn't realise this until earlier in the week, our 40th show since we started at the Mars Bar in May 2022. So we're ending the year with a great band, and it's a bit of a celebration as well. 40 gigs.
Well, yeah, congratulations on all your hard work.
Cheers! It's been a lot of fun, and learnt a lot in the 2.5 years or so. But it's been a great thing to do. So
lessons, I imagine.
Sorry,
some hard lessons, I imagine. Along the way.
Yeah, the hard lessons are the good ones, eh? They're the ones you'll remember.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. So yeah, Bryan, trumpet player and flugelhornist.
I guess that's the word.
And you'll be coming up with your instrumental groove unit on Thursday, which is, I think is that a fairly recent band?
It is. It's a new project I put together. Actually, before I had to take some time out, it just got going, and then obviously there was a period where it didn't exist for a while, and now it's kind of just finding its feet and getting back doing a few gigs here and there. So yeah, but it was a new venture of how I wanted to kind of present myself with some original music, and a little bit different to what I would have done before. Yeah,
because I mean, you've got loads of projects on the go, or have been involved in lots of projects. You've got the Bryan Corbett Quartet. That's still going? As I've seen you.
That's always been there. A quartet or quintet or trio or whatever. That's more of a project that's just continued over to a career of 30 years, really. So it's always there, and what I've done is built other things around that. So that's Bryan Corbett is always there for a gig, and it's the easiest way of calling a name and putting a name on something where I play. But I've always liked to have my own projects with my own band where we venture into a little bit of choice tunes or original tunes.
Yeah, and there's the Ready for Freddy. I think that was playing fairly recently, last year or so. I think I saw
that was a project I put together with Tom Hill, the great bass player from your way, actually.
Droitwich,
Droitwich way, or Detroit Witch, as he calls it. Yeah, Tom and myself put that together a few years back. It was really just for one gig, but it continued on because we loved playing that repertoire, and venues at the time that it was useful for them to have a little front on gigs, especially if you've been there doing, for instance, the Bryan Corbett Quartet, to do something different on a return. And so it kind of just it found its own feet, and we put a name to it, and it's great to play Freddie Hubbard tunes with that project.
Yeah, cool. And of course, we can't not mention the Brand New Heavies, one of my favorite bands. So I came along to Coventry to see you play the 30th anniversary tour of the Brother Sister album, and as I mentioned to you before, I went along with my wife because we'd been to see the original tour of that 30 years ago at Watford Town Hall when we were all a lot younger. So yeah, when did you actually join up with it, start working with him?
I joined, I think it was approximately 9 or 10 years ago now. Actually, when they had their little split when Jan, the drummer, left. And Luke, who's the drummer now, Luke Harris, who's coming to play with my group also on Wednesday at your place. Me and him joined at the same time.
Cool.
and the band kind of, I guess, found its feet again, gigging as that unit,
Yeah,
um, and kept going.
yeah,
More importantly, so yeah, that's been a real pleasure to do that, because like you, I was a fan back in the day of them and many bands of that ilk,
yeah,
um, coming through in the 90s, I guess, which was
yeah, absolutely.
an
Yeah.
amazing period for British acid jazz kind of music. And
Yeah, it really was. Yeah, yeah, great time to sort of get that. It was kind of like the late 80s, I suppose, really, that I sort of started, sort of coming out into your teens and your later teens, listening to music, and so that's when it all sort of
yeah,
opened up. Perfect time for it. And also, I think you did some work with Us Three as
I
well.
did. Yeah, I was with them for a few years, before they folded back in about 2012. Um, but yes, off and on for best part of a decade with them, I guess.
I interviewed Brandon Allen a while back because he came out to play for us and he'd done some work with Us Three. Were you playing together there at all with Brandon?
No, when the main there was the main sax player was Ed Jones, who was original kind of guy. I did a lot with Ed, and occasionally Sean Freeman would kind of step on the gig as a dep. Um, those were the two main guys I worked with us three.
He didn't go into too many details, but he said there's some great partying on the tours in Europe. So he had a lot of fun times with
Yeah.
Us Three. So. Um,
Yes, we won't go into that.
Indeed, indeed. What happens on the road stays on the road, eh? So let's dig a little bit about yourself. So you're born in Bromyard, I believe, which is not
Yeah,
a
grew
million
up
miles
there.
from Worcester.
Yeah, so I'm coming back for a local gig.
Yeah.
Yes, grew up there, and went to school there, went to college in Hereford. Um, Kind of then couldn't wait to get out of the area, back to the big city lights, if you like, when I was 17 or so.
Hmm.
And now you kind of get old and realize what a great, peaceful place that is, really.
Yeah. Yeah. It's lovely around here. We moved up from. I lived in Watford until 2018, so we moved up this way then, and it's just yeah, the space and the green and,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
the
very idyllic.
horizon. You can see hills and stuff in the distance, not buildings.
I don't
Um,
get back there that often, but I make a kind of little trip occasionally over to Bromyard just to go back over your footsteps, and it's always very pleasant.
yeah, cool. So where did it start musically for you? Because I was looking at an older interview that you did with Jazzwise a while back, and I think you wanted to get into sports more. You're more interested in sports. So.
Indeed. I mean, music and the trumpet started from an early age, where I've got an older brother who lives now in America. He's based over there and has been for decades. But he was already playing clarinet,
Hmm.
and a bit of piano, through my dad, really, is the musical side of the family. And
What
dad
did your
one
dad
day
play?
bought, say, what does
What
he
did your
play?
dad play?
Dad grew up in Newcastle up
Right.
north, and he used to play piano around the clubs up there. But he ventured into saxophone, clarinet, woodwinds, and he's worked with London College of Music, or I can't remember what it's called now, under that bracket, doing the jazz syllabuses and
Right. Okay.
examiners, and quite high up in that world, I guess. So he bought me home a trumpet as a kid and went, "There you go, you're gonna have a go at that." Um, and it was kept alongside my other education as a kid, kind of. I wouldn't say it was forced on you, but it was something you were going to do, and you reap the benefits of that later in life. So many people start an instrument and give it up at a
Yeah.
certain age, and then 10 years later, I wish I kept going at that. So yeah, it's been a since a nipper, really, since seven
Yeah.
or so, I guess.
And did you do any sort of formal training
I
musically?
had my I initially started off with my dad, and then a guy called that I remember, John Taylorson, was my first teacher. Kind of private lessons, and then eventually I moved on to a guy who's still there, runs Bromyard Wind Band now, which my dad started 20, 30 years ago, back in Bromyard, called Dave Thomas,
Okay.
from Hereford. Uh, Dave used to teach me, and my dad always kind of ran the jazz thing alongside it. So I was trained, I suppose, classically, if you like,
Right. Yeah.
mainly playing in orchestras and wind bands.
Hmm.
And the fun side of the music to me was the jazz, which kind of was, which my dad always kind of ran alongside it, and it was always, as I say, it was always light relief from the technique side and all of that was going on with the
Right.
classical
Cool.
training. But at the time, I was, especially my teenage years, I was a keen sportsman. I was quite a skillful sportsman and half decent at whatever I turned my hand to. But
Right.
football and cricket were my main loves, especially cricket. And my dream was to be a professional cricket player. But when I had some high up trials in that, I realised I wasn't going to make the grade.
Right.
So turned to the trumpet again.
Trumpet was the choice at the time, and that's worked out well for you.
Yeah, I think it was the right one. I think it was always going to be, but it was the right one in the end.
Fantastic. And I also saw you were in the Ronnie Scott's house band for the Birmingham um, club
They were
in the
great days.
last 6 months of the.
I really miss Ronnie Scott's in Birmingham, as a lot of people from that era will. I got my foot in the door there with my own bands. I used to, when I first started out, kind of running a band seriously with a guy called Jimmy Hunt who lives in Ludlow, who my dad actually taught saxophone. Jimmy's still playing strong and doing his own thing. But we put a project together, with local musicians from around Herefordshire. Trevor Davies, who
Mhm.
owned a music shop in Leominster, used to play. And we were getting gigs, getting more gigs. We were popular. We had a nice little set and a setup, and we got our foot in the door at Ronnie's and used to pull a good crowd. And then Steve Palmer, the drummer from Birmingham, who was in the house band at the time, asked me if me and Pete Harris, if I remember, great guitar player from Birmingham, we used to swap nights and go in each
Okay.
day.
Yeah.
It was a nice little gig to have. And then unfortunately, yeah, the Ronnie Scott's changed,
Yeah.
never to be replaced.
Became a strip club, as I understand.
Yeah,
That's
the
what
Rocket
people
Club, I
wanted in the
believe.
90s. Oh, actually, it was late. It was 2000, wasn't it?
It was
2009, was it? Some 2008, 2009, something like
Yeah, would have been around then. It was for myself, it was a place that you, to be polite, you always felt that you want to get your show together to perform there. It
that.
was
Right.
it was Ronnie's, and
Yeah.
great acts. Birmingham got a little bit of a bad slate on occasion, but it was, for me, it was a great place, and I used to feel proud going in there, loved going in there, and it was a stepping stone.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
when you were playing around pubs or whatever, and suddenly you're gigging at a proper jazz club.
Yeah.
Ronnie Scott's on it. It was a good little push.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Yeah, and nothing's really replaced it since. There's lots of
No,
people sort of comment.
no, I had a good go. There was a place called Ty's Jazz and Spice came along, which was run by somebody that became a great friend of mine called Ty Mahmood, down in the ghetto in Birmingham. But it was
Mhm.
the first ever Lloyd's Bank building, beautiful building, and he he had a restaurant there, and we got to be friends from playing there. And he wanted to set up a jazz club, and we had a good go for about 6 years.
Yeah.
A lot of great acts would come through there, local and touring people, and had its heyday for about 3 years. Eventually, like a lot of places, the money ran out.
Mm,
But yeah, those were great days. So we had a go. There's other great clubs that have been established, like the Jam House places for
mm,
20 years plus in Birmingham. But for me, not a Ronnie Scott's hasn't come along.
yeah.
Same as the Fiddle and Bone back in those days was, we used to do a Sunday, and you could literally play at the Strathallan, do a session there, or go and listen to a session,
Right.
move down to the Fiddle and Bone for the next session, move to Ronnie Scott's for the
Yeah.
evening, and that was just a Sunday. Um, Sometimes you'd have 2 or 3 gigs possibly on those days as well.
Yeah, I mean during the summer there was a lot going on in Birmingham because a lot of the younger kids from the sort of the
Yeah.
conservatoire and that graduated. They're all sort of there was Tuesdays is still Digbeth Jazz that was at the
Yep.
Spotted Dog that's now at the Night Owl. That's going every week. Cherry Reds on Wednesdays they were doing every week during the summer. I think they're back down to every 2 weeks. There was one that started up at Rumble in Digbeth on Thursdays, but I don't think much came of that. And then a Friday Birmingham Jazz at 1,000 Trades. That's every week. And then there's a
Yeah,
couple of
Phil
other ones
Rose.
that
Yeah.
go sort of monthly at the Craven Arms and um, yeah. So there's quite a lot going. There's sort of the various nights of the week and Sunday afternoons and that. But I think
Well,
you
I
know,
think that's created having the conservatoire here has created, it's like many cities creates its own
yeah,
scene, which is very positive.
yeah.
Um,
The only thing I would
and
s- the only thing I would
uh,
say about that is it's in one sense it's great because you've got that happening, but at the same time it does get a little bit samey because you get the same people sort of turning up at the same. I mean, it's great to see musicians coming through and that, but you do tend to get a lot of the same people playing together. Um, and yeah, so it's obviously with the likes of Ronnie Scott's and that they can get bigger bands and sort of bigger names out and sort of bring those in. So I think it's
well,
as a promoter myself, you kind of look around at well, if I was to open up a big club, for example, is is it going to get people through the door? Because if the smaller venues and that aren't being supported, when it's available, sort of all over the place, and it's quite a risk to sort of look at
yeah,
look at a club. But I think
it's
yeah, I mean it's live music has changed, and the attendance and what people go out for. People are a lot less. They're a lot more careful, I suppose, on where they spend their money. Basically, yeah,
absolutely.
what it
Well,
comes down to, as we will have to be, and so people taking a punt on sort of original stuff and more niche stuff is becoming more
it's
more
it's
difficult to
it's
attract.
hard. I mean, it's hard for the musicians to, as being a frontline player, trumpet. I can get around by just being called in myself to play with rhythm sections
Yeah,
that are put
yeah,
together at jazz societies, etc. So you keep your gigs ticking over with those, and they're lovely gigs. They're generally for an older audience, I
yeah,
would say, and a different audience, but they give another outlet for somebody who's a
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
frontline player. Actually, your own projects, your own gigs, getting gigs, it's harder. The
yeah,
budgets are tough. So much relies on fundings of some description. Um, so it's a really tough game, but as an artist, I suppose it's what you do, and you need to keep a fine. I've managed myself to keep a nice balance of when I've been doing more commercial stuff to
yeah,
keep my jazz alongside that. And it's so important. Um, I guess for me, Peggy Skylights has opened in Nottingham, which has become a place I go to quite regularly and perform.
Mm.
And that's more like a Ronnie
Yeah,
Scott esque club, and it's doing well by all accounts. But it's doing well. Is it's surviving?
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've
Um,
got to get down to there because it's Paul Deeks who's your keyboard player is he runs that, doesn't he? Yes, I've
it
it's
is. Well,
been on my
Paul's
list.
playing with me on
Yeah,
Wednesday at yours.
yeah,
He's let alone running that place with his wife. Paul's a fantastic keyboard player,
mm,
uh, fantastic musician. So yeah,
yeah, yeah, that's cool. It's yeah, and it's funny. I was down at Ronnie Scott's in London earlier in the week or last week it was. Yeah, I can't remember now. Fly by. But I think yeah, the thing the more I go there, the less I kind of like it because
yep,
I love what it stands for and the history of it and that, but it kind of also now seems to represent every time I go there, it seems to represent that kind of elite exclusivity of jazz and the pricing of it and everything else. And to get down to London and stop at a hotel now is like 300 quid for the night before to get
yeah,
in and stop at a hotel and that. And it's great in that you can get you touring artists, international touring artists, and that are only going to play a couple of venues in the UK, and that's going to be one of them. But at the same time, it's so inaccessible to most people.
yeah,
That's kind of what I feel when I'm there. It's kind of very privileged to be able to be there, but at the same time, it's this is great music that needs to get out to
yeah.
and more
Absolutely. I
people
mean,
discover it.
often as a musician, just playing in the corner of a room, no matter where it is, with the right musicians, is kind of
Yeah.
enough. No. Um, I've I've played Ronnie's a few times in London, not as much as I'd like, and I keep trying to get my own projects in there, but I need to get back on pushing my own stuff a lot more.
Yeah.
But I was down there actually with Luke, the Luke Harris, the drummer's own W3 band, which is
Mhm.
I would say a band of younger generation musicians out of college and on the pop stroke jazz scene,
Yeah.
doing great little funk show that they've put together. And they kind of put that together upstairs at Ronnie's and then moved it
Right.
downstairs. It's
Yeah.
really probably sold out every time they play there, but it felt nice to be on that stage. They've done a nice refurb, but I know exactly what you mean. I mean, is corporate the right word? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
It is, it is what it is. It's got to survive as well, and
Yeah.
that's what it is. The grassroots level, if you like, of it is so much harder to.
Yeah. I think, as you say, you've got the upstairs. Although I think that's closed. They're doing a big refurb up there, aren't they? So that's
Yeah,
closed for until next
yeah,
August, I think. But at least with that, you've got the upstairs and you've got the late shows as well. So you've got the opportunity to sort of play there, and so you do get members and people that come along for the earlier gigs and they'll stick around for the night. Especially if you're stopping in London for the.
yeah. I wish I knew more about it, to be honest, and I wish I got down there a little bit more. But
There's still time, Brian. There's still time.
yeah, absolutely. The best is yet to come.
Indeed. So let's talk about the band that is coming up on Thursday. Because I think they're all sort of West Midlands based players. Well, Paul's Nottingham, I suppose, isn't he? But
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it it's important to have something that you can one there with the right people to pull together, and I think that's there's a unique sound and a unique vibe with this project, which is that fortunate? Is it just the way it is? I don't know. It's great, but from word go, it's kind of yeah. This is different. This feels good. It's a um, good feeling between all of us about it, about the music, and about giving it a go. And it's quite an improvised or a free spirited um, gig that I want in terms of improvisation. So you've got
mm,
to have people that people that are willing to not willing to enter that mindset also. That although I've always, it's not it's not just turn up and let's have a completely free improvisation. It's not one of those. There's good heads, there's good
Yeah,
tunes, there's some structures to it, but it's very much of the ilk. Okay, once we're going, it could go anywhere. Two
yeah,
shows should never, that's in most jazz, two shows should never ever be the same.
yeah.
Grooves should change in the moment, things like that. And I put it together. I've done groove projects, but back in when I had the jazz club I spoke about at Tyres Jazz and Spice, we built a studio upstairs, and at the time I was dipping into computers and
Right.
getting electronics and that, and I wrote a couple of albums around that time. The second one I did nothing with at the time. So a few of those tunes have reared their head
Hmm.
because there was I felt like that had a great vibe, some of that music, and I've written three or four other new ones for this project. There's a couple of very choice. There's one Freddie Hubbard tune that's never ever played really by people that we venture into, but it's 95% original
Yeah.
music, and
Good.
it's built from the ground up with a groove drummer
Right.
rather than a straight ahead jazz drummer who plays a bit of some groove as well.
Right.
Luke's
Okay. Yeah.
very
Yeah.
much, although Luke has all those chops to do the jazz stuff as well, but
Hmm.
he's very much comes from groove based
Yeah.
music. Um, so from the ground up, it was important to build it right, if you like, which I think comes across.
Yeah. Cool. So it's obviously Paul Dietz, as we said on keys, bringing his Fender Rhodes up with you.
He is, very fortunate there, Paul. Again, this shows his dedication and love of what he does. He only really wants to play his real roads, which is a beautiful thing,
Mm.
as many people will know. And despite many a keyboard doing great emulations, there's nothing like the real thing, and it just looks right on stage as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so for me, that's just a beautiful thing, and again it solidifies that okay, there's something right about this project, doing it in that way, having
Yeah.
a great player who understands the instrument, as
Yeah.
because it's all very well owning a Fender Rhodes. You've got to know what to do with a Fender
Yeah.
Rhodes, so that's a beautiful thing.
Excellent. A great level of authenticity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
lacking in so much out there today. And then we've got, as we said, Luke Harris on drums, and Wayne
yeah.
Matthews on bass. So
Well,
another,
Wayne, I've known for ages, and we've dipped in together on the occasional sessions and etc. Wayne's very much an individualistic bass player, virtuoso
mm,
bass player. I mean, his technique's unbelievable. And again, he was kind of somebody we spoke together about. Let's do something. Luke lives quite close to Wayne as well, and it just felt right.
is it Coventry way there out there?
Yeah, kind of Leamington way.
Yeah.
So it felt right, and Wayne brings something very unique that only Wayne can bring.
Yeah, I've been down not frequently enough. I think I've been down only once actually, because he does the jazz jam at Bedford Street in Leamington Spa, doesn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's his kind of little baby. Yeah,
Yeah, because actually the I was at Stratford Jazz with I think it was after you, because I'd seen the instrumental groove unit. You played Stratford, and then you played the Tin, didn't you? I think that was the
US, that's right.
last gig
Yeah.
you played at the Tin, so I was up at that. But I was at Stratford for Emily Francis trio
Uh-huh.
later in the year, or and yeah, Luke was sat next to me at the table, so we got chatting. But he was off because the Bedford Street thing goes on quite late, doesn't it? I think it
It
starts
does,
at about
yeah.
8:45. So yeah, he was off. He was off to that, and I was toying with the idea, but I got an
Well,
earlier
for
for myself.
you know, you it's important to have the local stuff.
Mm,
We don't always want to get in a car and have to drive 3 hours,
yeah,
especially the way traffic is. So to do stuff locally or reasonably locally is very important.
yeah,
Especially when you're getting older like me with health issues like me.
indeed,
It's a godsend when it's just down the road.
indeed, yeah. And yeah, you've certainly had some health issues to deal with quite recently as well. We've only got a few minutes, but do you want to just sort of give a summary of where you're at now?
Well, it's quite remarkable, really. The picture that was painted was very scary and didn't really know what to expect. But through love, support, and we made this surgery happen in Geneva, in Switzerland, with some amazing specialists out there who I've known um, since I had surgeries back in 2012. Um, I mean, what's gone on inside is quite remarkable, really. Especially one, to save my life, but two, as a trumpet player. I mean, for instance, some of my diaphragm is now mesh.
Right.
Uh, so whether I'd be able to pick up a trumpet and actually blow it was questionable. Um, but here I am, only 9 months later after this
It's fantastic.
huge surgery. Really, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm scarred from here to here, if you can see that. Massive. They took this out from me, and a few ribs later, a bit of liver later, and diaphragm being mesh, etc. Here I am, but I'm remarkably well. My
This is
tests are
grand.
good.
Great to hear,
Um,
and really pleased that we're able to get your band and get you a gig in Worcester.
yeah, well, everything, it gives you a different outlook on things, and doing my own thing is important, and it's really, I don't take it for granted.
It's a beautiful thing, and it should be out there. Well, thanks so much for your time today. Really looking forward to having you down. It'll be our last show of the year, and as I said, our 50th. I'm thinking ahead now. Our 40th. We will have a
Yeah,
50th
marvelous.
next year.
Well,
But
let's
just,
yeah, so anyone listening, please come down.
indeed, it'll be a cracker. So safe trip over, and see you on Thursday. It's at the Mars Bar,
Nice one.
8 p.m. doors.
Look forward to it.
Cheers, right.